Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, where you will discover practical strategies to inspire you to boost the health and nutrition of your kids. I'm Jessica Donovan, a qualified naturopath specialising in kids' health, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you to raise healthy and happy kids. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast. We have another Real Conversations episode for you today. You guys have been loving these episodes. If you've been listening, maybe this is the first one you've listened to. If it is, you can go back over the last couple of months. We've had a variety of real conversations with our Natural Super Kids Klub members and clients and our community about some of the challenges that they've been having with their kids' health and nutrition, as well as the changes that they've made and the improvements that they've noticed as well. I've been loving having these conversations with our members and clients. It's just so heartwarming to hear from these mums how well their kids are doing. Because I'm not seeing clients one-on-one anymore, we have other practitioners on the team that are doing that. But also when we're creating resources for the members, for our Natural Super Kids Klub members, when we're supporting our members, answering their questions, we don't always hear back about the positive improvements that they have noticed or seen. So it's been really lovely for me to be having these conversations, and we'll certainly be bringing more of these to the podcast in the future as well. So if you are in our community and you would like the opportunity to come on and have a chat with me and share your story about your child's health improvements and the healthy changes that you've made as a family, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to email us, jessica@naturalsuperkids.com, or send us a DM on Instagram. And we would love to connect. So today's episode is with Katie. Katie is one of our beautiful Natural Super Kids Klub members. She has been a member for years and years and years now. She shares in this conversation, how she first came across us, and that was years ago. And I just love one of the reasons that I actually launched the Natural Super Kids Klub membership was so that we could give ongoing support and have this place where we could really build a community and continue to support parents, because raising kids is not a done that sort of approach. There's different challenges that come up along the way. There's different stages that have different challenges. And our kids have different needs at different stages as well. And so that was a really big factor and motivation for me to create the Natural Super Kids Klub. And Katie is a beautiful example of one of those mums who has been in our community for years. She's an active part of our community. She's asking questions, and we have just loved to help her navigate the different stages in her kids' lives. So Katie's got 2 boys, and she initially joined the Natural Super Kids Klub because her eldest had been diagnosed autistic, and she was feeling lost about what to do, how to support him. And you will hear about the improvements that she's noticed in her boys' mood, their sleep, their behavior, and their eating habits as well. So let's meet Katie. Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, Katie.
Thank you. Thanks, Jess, for having me.
Oh, it's so good to be chatting again. We were just saying off air that we have not connected for quite a few years, so it's good to be chatting. Do you want to start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yeah, sure. So I live in Adelaide with my husband and my 2 boys. They are 11 and 9, and I'm a part-time worker, full-time mum, just trying to get through life as best I can, like all of us. Yeah,
juggling all the things.
Yeah, all the things.
Yeah, beautiful. And so, can you tell us a little bit about the challenges that you've been dealing with when it comes to your two kids?
Yeah, of course. So I've been a member for quite a few years now.
You
And I
have,
was saying,
haven't you?
I have, yeah. So it's kind of nice to look back and reflect sort of where we've come from. I guess initially I signed up to the club. I had two young little boys. They were in childcare. We had constant challenges with sleep, with sickness, battling lots of, skin conditions and asthma and fussy eating and all of those sort of toddler year struggles. Behavior and sleep for one of my boys in particular was right up there as a concern that we'd always struggled with. And I guess just trying to sort of get as much advice as I could, especially with my eldest, first time mum, you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah, and you also don't know
Yeah.
what's like, for want of a better word, like normal. Like,
Mm,
is this like normal, developmentally normal, or should I be concerned about this?
absolutely. Yeah. So we had some underlying concerns with sleep and behavior with my eldest son. And I felt like we had a great GP and, we would go and see pediatricians and specialists and we were sort of always told, things will work themselves out. These times are tough. You've kind of just got to push through. And we just got sick of being told the same things over and over and not really being armed with anything that we felt we could do ourselves as a family. And so the club kind of popped up and I just thought, I just need some direction and some support here and to sort of know what is normal and what we can do to try and help. So it's been amazing for that.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think your eldest, had he already been diagnosed autistic, or did that come
Uh,
later? Do you
I
remember?
I can't actually remember. He was diagnosed when he was about 3.5, with autism specifically. Before that, it was a severe speech delay, which we kind of again, we're like, is this normal? Is this a normal rate of development and progress? And but I think perhaps I had joined soon thereafter, really
Mm.
looking for some specific sort of direction on how to support him. Not only was he our first child, but I don't know any families with kids with autism at the time. We do now. Yeah, so just some support specifically to help the family with that and him. Yeah,
And there's a lot more resources around now about autism, but even just that many years ago, however, maybe
maybe.
7, 8 years ago,
Yeah,
there was a lot less, wasn't there?
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And kind of, just trying to get as much support as we possibly could. Whatever was out there, we would. Therapy wise, we were trialing, and I just thought, there's no one thing that's going to help, but I think we need to holistically look at all the areas and just trying to empower ourselves with a bit of knowledge, yeah, and
Yeah,
confidence.
definitely.
Yeah,
Because it's one thing to get the diagnosis, often you kind of feel like, it's kind of a bit of an answer, but it's like, then what? What do we do with all these challenges when it comes to fussy eating and behavior and sleep?
absolutely.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
think I remember you talking about, that was one of the reasons that you joined the club, to kind of get some guidance in those areas.
yeah, definitely. And I think, as I said, all the things over the years. He's 11 now and,
Mm.
thriving in a mainstream school. I mean, he still has his challenges, that's for sure. But I've loved being able to impart the knowledge that I've learnt from the club to him. Because I think, he's of an age now where, they're going to start to make their own decisions in regards to, food. And we're getting, before that tween teen stage. I love for him to know, he's going to be an adult managing all of these challenges eventually, and it'd be great to, for him to learn like I have. Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
been
really
great.
empowering him with
Mm,
that knowledge. I really love
yeah,
that. So tell us about some of the changes that you've made, dietary changes, lifestyle changes, supplements and things like that, that have made a difference for your boys.
yeah, for sure. I guess I remember back in the day, starting off in the club, it was a little bit overwhelming. But then I felt like life was overwhelming as it was anyway. So sort of trying to break things down into really small steps and, finding what fit our family first and foremost. That was easiest, for me, having two little kids. But for Harry specifically, I mean, he was an extremely fussy eater, all the brown and white crunchy foods, nothing with colour in it. And, they're only little kids. It's really hard to kind of get those dietary changes happening. So I actually think the supplements, we worked with the practitioner, Jess, initially, to kind of help boost that process a little bit. And as time went on, we were given strategies, and I felt like over time we were able to take away the gluten and take away the dairy just for enough time, and him to have other things that he would be willingly accept, to see what sort of difference it would make. And just slowly transitioning on to, more whole foods, strengthening that dietary repertoire that was so, restricted in the beginning.
Because it's a bit of a negative cycle and a bit of a catch-22. So, when kids are fussy, obviously they're often lacking nutrition in their diet, but then the lack of nutrition, things like lack of iron and lack of zinc, can cause more fussiness in kids. So getting some of those nutrients that are individualized for that child in through supplements can really help to break that cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was the first time that we started to think, oh wow, we're really making some progress here. It's so hard as a mum to, sit and watch your kids, and that, you should be doing better, or but it's really tricky with a kid with special needs on top of everything else. It gave me a lot of confidence, which was great. Yeah.
And for parents listening that are like, tell me more in terms of like, do you remember, I know it's been a bit of a process and over a fairly, a decent period of time, but what are some of the things that have helped to get more whole foods into, particularly your eldest son, who was really fussy and very beige focused in his diet? Can you think of some of those ways?
I do think a lot of sneaking in the beginning, unfortunately, was the way to go until he had a concept of what was going on. And, that was probably a couple of years later. So it's, it is definitely a slow process. But then I guess talking more about, what ingredients I have in spaghetti bolognese, rather than it just looking like, meat and sauce and pasta. Really, really slow process. And just, I think the more you talk about it and the more you make it an everyday conversation, sometimes I thought I was just talking to myself a lot of the time and not much sinking in, but, time down the track, it turns out that they do listen, and they do learn. So really slow processes. Yeah.
I think that's really important to know. And it gives, I think, people hope. It's not a fast, there's nothing you can do to kind of fast track this stuff. It's that slow, slow changes. I think generally kids don't like change, but like autistic kids tend to resist change even more.
Absolutely.
And so those slow changes and knowing that you're making progress, I think celebrating those little wins along the way is really important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And sticking at it. And, sometimes I felt like I was kind of falling off the bandwagon, and I guess having the club conversations constantly going, I might have a week or two where I'm like, I just can't deal with this, anymore. I'm really struggling. And then, a podcast might come up, or a chat, or a comment, and you kind of refresh yourself again in your motivation, because it's and just remembering to fill your own cup, I think, because it's the old saying, you can't fill from an empty cup. So
and I really love that point that you made about, sometimes you are just done with the trying and making progress. And so, the club is a great resource for that, where you can dip in and kind of go through some content when you're feeling up for it. Or like you said, maybe a conversation pops up in the community, or a suggestion even from another parent that you're like, oh, maybe I can try that.
Yep, absolutely. So I guess it's been my little lifeline, I think, in the background. And I just, I find it also fascinating. So I guess, that sort of helps too. Wanting to
And you're
learn.
just one of those amazing mums that loves to, continue to learn more about your kids' health and their nutrition and their well-being and things that you can make differences in. And I love what you were saying before about then translating that information to them so they're more empowered.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I can teach them things that they can take into their adulthood, and then with their own families, I think that's in a society where it's this sort of information is not readily taught or perhaps talked about, and God forbid boys talk about nutrition. It's something that I've had to make a conscious effort to embed in them. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And I know like I've got a just turned 17-year-old and he is starting to become more interested in nutrition personally because, he watches the gym guys and he's interested in, so you've got to find that motivation for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And tap into that. So tell us about some of the improvements that you've noticed in your boys.
Yeah, sure. So I guess the big ticket item on our list, initially when the kids were little, and especially my eldest son, was sleep. He'd never slept through a night in his life to that date. So we've certainly worked really hard on that, and that's definitely improved. I won't say that he sleeps in his own bed all night, every single night, but we've definitely seen some improvement there for sure. And we can't function on enough, on very little sleep. So you can only imagine how their little brains are working. So that's definitely something that's helped. And it's also helped with, my younger son, just certain strategies if he's, having a bit of a stressful time at school, or having certain strategies that we can help with him as well. So definitely sleep, behavior is a huge thing. And I won't sort of go into sort of too many specifics with supplements, but there'll be times where perhaps we've run out for a few weeks, and I'll just feel like, gosh, what's going on with you guys? Why is everyone so unsettled or angry, or and it is because of those things that definitely help them get through. Yeah, and this time of year we notice too, the wheels start falling off for everybody. So behavior and sleep, immunity's definitely improved. Skin, they had a few sort of skin conditions as well underlying, and I feel like we keep them at bay now without resorting to creams and things from the doctors all the time, which was only ever a short-term fix.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And what you said about like running out of the supplements, I think that's kind of good to test, what everyone's like without supplements here and there. Sometimes it happens accidentally because you're out and you haven't ordered more. But yeah, so you really notice the difference in terms of those, key nutritional supplements that they're on, and their behavior and mood being better on those.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to start off with, like you said, it was kind of a bit of a mistake. And then a couple of times we've done it deliberately just to sort of see, how we're tracking. But it is nice to, feel comforted to know that there's no doubt that helps them through for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. And just but going back to sleep, what you talked about, I mean, that's just everything, isn't it? If your kids aren't sleeping well, it's going to be affecting their mood, their energy, even their appetite and the whole family's well-being, because often they're not awake at night on their own. They're waking us up as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. It's a flow-on effect for the whole family. I remember having my little one, and he was a newborn, and he was sleeping better than the eldest one. So that was certainly an eye-opener. But we used to go from laying with him, for 3 hours to get him to settle and calm and wind down. And, now we're down to about half an hour. So yeah, big improvements. Yeah.
Huge. And I know people listening, like, we don't want to talk about specific supplements because then we know, like, people will self kind of prescribe, and what is right for your boys might not be right for someone else. But can you talk about, like, I think they're on magnesium, aren't they, as one of the key
Yeah, absolutely.
nutrients?
Yeah, so magnesium for both the boys, and my boys are super active. The oldest one's just been diagnosed with ADHD as well, so they tend to come hand in hand quite often with an autism diagnosis. Yeah, so the omega supplements
Omegas as well,
have been a game changer. And again, it just for both of them, I've really felt like it's made a huge difference. Zinc and vitamin C, magnesium, and a mood specific sort of probiotic.
Such a good combination.
Yeah. So that's, in a nutshell. And it has changed and evolved over the years, for sure. And then it ebbs and flows depending on, perhaps if they've had a bit of a run of colds or what have you. But just sort of having that advice in the club has been, a game changer to sort of check in with every now and then and see we're on the right track or, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I was just thinking about, the overall effect. So, for example, something like zinc, which is really important for neurological health, for mood, for behavior, but it's also really beneficial for immunity. So often these nutrients have this kind of crossover effect where you're seeing benefits in like mood and behavior, but also benefits in immunity. So we don't have to kind of, departmentalize everything and be on different things for different systems. Often they overlap, and a lot of these nutrients are beneficial for lots of different areas when it comes to our kids' health. So thank you for sharing. Anything else you would like to share, thinking about, mums or dads that might be listening that have kids that have had a diagnosis of autism or ADHD, before we get into the quick fire questions?
I guess to try and find your village. There'll be people out there who you connect with, and that might be one person, that might be a handful of people. I just think keep an open mind to everything. I listen to a lot of different people, and just take on different things. But just, find your people that get you, and just be kind, because to yourself, really, it's a lot. It's a lot for a family to take on. And things certainly get better. Yeah.
That's really nice. Yeah. And that's really good advice, finding that village, finding that support. And a couple of times you've mentioned that, like, filling your own cup as a parent, because it is a lot to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And, no one's written a manual how to parent, let alone parent a special needs child. And, they're really great kids. We've met some amazing kids, through different therapy groups, and, my son's really made some great connections, which is wonderful. And he's such a super confident kid, which I love about him. So, just keep trying to find your people, and and look after yourself, for sure. Yeah.
Such good advice. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So let's do some of these quick fire questions. What do you think your kids would say if I asked them what makes you a good mum?
Oh, honestly, because I buy them Robux. That is it. That is it. I actually asked them that, and they're like, "Oh, you buy us Robux, so that's pretty cool."
I love it. So simple.
That's all they like. Yeah.
What do you find most challenging in motherhood?
Just all the things on your plate, and all the things that I want to do but don't get time to do. Prioritizing yourself in amongst all of that. That would be probably the biggest challenge for me. Not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, it'd be good if we could have another day in the week, or
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hard sure. to fit it all in and juggle it all, but I think you do an amazing job from what I can see on the outside.
Thank you.
What would you prefer to do with your kids? A craft activity, cooking or outdoor adventures?
Definitely outdoor adventures. Yeah. Yeah. We've just recently bought a caravan actually, and our kids are absolutely loving it. Yeah. I wish that we'd done it sooner. Yeah.
So good. And you're in that really good window of time before, they become older teenagers and don't want to go away with you anymore.
Absolutely. I'm very mindful of that, although I think I have one that will never leave home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just one.
And just having a caravan or even just a tent, like we don't even, I mean, caravans make it a bit more comfortable, but
yeah.
Camping with kids is just the best. I absolutely love it. And my kids are a bit older, so they're not so keen to come camping anymore most of the time, but I'm just so thankful for all of the camping and camper vanning that we got in while they were little.
Yeah, it's been a game changer for us. Yeah,
because you just spend so much time outside when you're away in a caravan, don't you?
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's okay to be bored, and you find all these amazing things that you can do with your imagination that they just don't seem to do at home. Yeah.
Yes, taking them out of that kind of home environment does them the world of good. Awesome. What's a meal that you make that everyone eats?
Oh, I'm very proud to say this, but just like a baked marinated salmon with rice and broccoli. Like, it's something they'll all have. I never thought that I would say that my children would eat fish, let alone salmon. It's something that keeps everyone happy. Yeah.
That's amazing. From a child who only ate a beige diet to fish, rice and broccoli, that's a huge progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And a nice simple one, like doesn't take too long to make either.
Absolutely. Yep. Straight in the oven, 20 minutes. Good, easy. Yeah. Quick dinner.
Perfect. And what would you do if you had 2 hours to yourself today?
Gosh, catch up on all my podcasts, perhaps. I've found a recent like for Pilates, so just trying to fill my cup. And just spending some time outside, sunshine on you. Makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Podcast, Pilates and sunshine. Sounds like a beautiful afternoon to me.
Yeah, definitely. 2 hours is probably not quite enough. So that's okay. I'll take it.
We'll make it 4 hours.
Okay, sure. Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Katie. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat to me today.
Pleasure. I love catching up with you. Thanks for all your help.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, for the show notes for this episode, as well as a whole heap of inspiration to help you raise healthy and happy kids. I'll see you next week.